using that memory reference. That means if I say X, then it will directly return the value 10. That is what actually primitive types. Whereas non-primitive types are little bit different. Non-primitive types are different. Actually, non-primitive types are stored in memory heap. They are stored in a memory heap. That means they are stored in the memory heap. And in the memory heap, the memory is allocated in a memory heap. And what happens in a memory heap is, so the memory heap don't have any fixed range. No fixed range for value. No fixed range for value. It doesn't have any fixed range for value. Memory heap don't have any fixed range for value. No fixed range for value. That means the value range will vary. So it varies according to browser, according to memory available. That means according to the memory available, the value range will change. So that means it will not have a fixed range for the values. The value range will be changing. They don't have any fixed range. Another important point is values are not directly stored in the memory. Actually, in the memory, again references are created. That means in the memory, suppose this is the memory X. In the memory, again references are created like 0, 1, 2, 3. And in that the values are stored. In the memory, the values are stored with a reference. Then how we can access these values? They are not accessed directly by using this X. They are accessed with a reference in the memory like this, X0. So they are accessed by using like X1. That means they are not accessed directly by using the memory name. They will be using a reference in the memory. These are what actually we call non-primitive types. So primitive types will have a fixed range for value. They are stored in a memory stack. Non-primitive types will not have any fixed range for value. The value range will be changing according to the memory available. Primitive types so uses the last in first out mechanism, and there is no order for accessing the values in non-primitive types. There is no order. You can access value anywhere. Another important point, the values are stored in a memory reference. They can be directly accessed with that memory reference. But non-primitive types, they will not allow to access directly by the memory name. They use a reference in the memory. Detailedly, we will discuss about the non-primitive types when we start learning about them. So the first important we are going to discuss here is about the primitive types. Later, we will go into the non-primitive types. And what are the various primitive types? That means they are categorized. The data types are categorized into two groups. We have primitive types, and we have non-primitive types. Right? We have primitive and non-primitive types. And what are primitive types? The basic points I told you. Primitive types stored in memory stack. Primitive types have fixed range for value. A memory stack, it uses last in first out mechanism. That means it have a fixed range for value. So, and values are stored and accessed directly by using the allocated memory name. by using the allocated memory reference name. That is what actually the primitive types. And what are the various primitive types? The TypeScript primitive types. Primitive types. The TypeScript primitive types are, we have a number type. We have a number type. So we have a Boolean type. We have a Boolean type. We have a string type. We have a null type, and we have an undefined type. Don't compare this with other languages, because when you are dealing with other programming languages, so sometimes you, in other languages, you will have string as a reference type. That means as a non-primitive type. But here, string comes under primitive types. Don't compare this with other languages that you know already, right? Here in TypeScript, string is a primitive type. So Boolean, number are primitive types. Null and undefined are primitive types. So that means they have a fixed range for the values. They are stored and accessed by using the memory reference, right? And how they are declared, how they are configured, and how the values are stored. We will see that. Actually, so we are declaring something here, data type.ts we are declaring. And how to declare the variables now? We need to define like this. So let or var or anything. Variable name is suppose product ID, that is the variable name. And data type you have to define by using colon, and data type is number. And once you declare that, you can declare or you can initialize. Once you declare as number into product ID, you can store only a number. If I try to store a string, it is not valid. You can see it says that it is a number type and you cannot assign. Once you determine the type, you can store only that specific type. That means 1. Now that is valid. Suppose I am declaring let name. Name is a string type. And in that we can store initialize only a string type value, Samsung TV. And later, if I am trying to use name as some other number value, it is not assignable. Of course, we can assign Samsung LED TV. We can render with a new string, but you cannot render with any another value. You initialize it with something. You initialize it with just TV. Later, you rendered some other value into it. That's okay. But some other type of value you are trying to render inside it, it is not possible. That means it is restricted. It is restricted to the particular type. Then we are using console.log and we are typing that here. So we are configuring that here. And you can see, so ID is equal to, and we need to access that. So that is product ID. And the name is equal to /n. So name is equal to, what is this $flower brace? We will understand later. I am just explaining the type. Later we will discuss about that. Actually, if you know JavaScript, the string with expressions are defined by using backticks. These are called backticks. Later you will learn here also. I'm just showing you. And the name is coming like this. And we are trying to print the value. Then we can access and print the value here. So let's explore and execute this. So in the command prompt, data type tsc data type dot ts and node data type dot js, and you can see it returns the value. The ID is 1, name is this. You can restrict the type of values and how we can configure that. So syntax, we need to define like this. So let, so ID, it is a number type and you can store a numerical value into it. Suppose if I am trying to store some other type of value into it, this is invalid. this is invalid. You cannot assign.